ating mahal na Pangulong Bongbong Marcos.
Thank you. The manifestation is noted. Any other comment?
Madam Chair.
The Honorable Emmett Pascual.
Yes, Madam Chair, administration, itinuloy lang po ito ng Pangulo. And lastly, once the unprogrammed appropriations is included and approved in the national budget, President Marcos is not the one implementing it, but the agency concerned like the DPWH. Yun lang po. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Pascual. Any other member who wish to comment on this?
Madam Chair.
The Honorable Erice, and then Honorable Acosta, and then Honorable De Lima, one after the other. And then Honorable Rodriguez. Honorable Erice, you are recognized.
Madam Chair, I think the issue of the 2023, 2024, and 2025 budget
Yan na, si Erice.
program appropriation
Diyan sa bibida.
other items that has been questioned even by the investigation of the Blue Ribbon Committee. It's a very complicated matter. Sa tingin ko po ay walang personal na kaalaman yung complainant tungkol dito. Kaya po hindi po niya na-ipresenta na maayos. Ang complaint na ito, sa tingin ko po ay hindi niya maiugnay. Basta batayan lamang yung mga news articles. Kaya sa tingin ko po ay hindi sapat substance complaint na ito.
Pero sila nag-fight sa Supreme Court based on news articles.
Thank you, Honorable Erice. Next is the
Ang
Honorable
dito si Erice.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just 2 points. First is on the veto power of the President. Madam Chair, that the power of the President to veto bill or specific items in an appropriations bill under Article 6, Section 27 is a discretionary power, not a mandatory duty. Jurisprudence dictates in that landmark case of Benson versus Dillon establishes that the President cannot be compelled to exercise a veto. Therefore, Madam Chair, a failure to veto cannot be a definition or a culpable violation of the Constitution. Second is on the attachment on paragraph 25, on that case of Pimentel et al. Versus House of Representatives, Colmenares versus Executive Secretary, GR numbers 274778, where the Supreme Court declared part of the law unconstitutional, does not automatically mean that the President is culpably violated the Constitution by signing it. If it were the case, Madam Chair, that every President who signed law was later voided would be impeached. There must be proven bad faith, which the complainant fails to allege in this instant, Madam Chair. Thank you.
The manifestation of the Honorable Acosta is noted by the committee. Next is the Honorable De Lima.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As to this third ground, the specific
Nawala.
ground of failure to veto unprogrammed appropriations and other provisions of the 2023, 2024, and 2026 GAA as allegedly constituting betrayal of public trust. My view, again, is that these are insufficient, or this ground is insufficient in substance. Again, there are three, I point to
Honorable De Lima, because we do not want to miss your valuable opinion on this. Kindly speak closer to the microphone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this specific ground has again three sub-allegations that I see from the face of the complaint. Number one, PBBM did not veto unprogrammed appropriations. There is lack here of specification of how the alleged omission was committed other than a general averment and the provision of law or constitution violated in the omission. Number two sub-allegation, PBBM wanted to preserve discretionary control over public funds. It lacks specification of the acts committed and the provision of law or constitution violated. The third sub-allegation, PBBM subverted the power of the purse and violated the Constitution when he did not vote. this is a conclusion of law and not a factual allegation. So all of these allegations under this third ground fail to establish the nexus between the alleged failure to veto and program appropriations and betrayal of public trust. This ground does not go further than argue that because PBBM did not veto and program appropriations, therefore he betrayed the public trust. Well, we know that with respect to the general ground of betrayal of public trust, there is much leeway because this is supposed to be a catch-all provision, like culpable violation of the Constitution, unlike the others like treason, graft and corruption, and bribery. But it cannot possibly conceive or cover all imaginable or all conceivable acts of wrongdoing or failure of judgment. Now, this conclusion must be preceded by a recital of factual allegations establishing why exactly PBBM's refusal to exercise his veto power on unprogrammed appropriations amounts to a violation of the law and the Constitution. Personally, Madam Chair, along with the Honorable Chair Egay Erice, I always held the view that unprogrammed appropriations in the budget are of questionable constitutionality. That's why we filed a petition before the Supreme Court. But the issue here is not the constitutionality of the unprogrammed appropriations, but whether the facts as alleged on the face of the complaint has a connection or can satisfactorily establish
Yan ang sinasabi ko.
betrayal of public trust. As I said again, these are mere conclusions and therefore insufficient.
Noon ko pa sinasabi yan eh, hindi unconstitutional ang program appropriations.
Now we recognize the Honorable Rodriguez. Honorable Rodriguez, then Honorable Chua, then Honorable SDML Defensor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Manifestation very short. Again, this particular third act
Guys, tuloy-tuloy lang to ha. BRB ako, BRB.
does not have comply with the requirement of sufficiency in substance because the President has that discretion to veto or not. If it's veto, that's the end. You try to have it again. Probably convince the President the next time to veto. If it's veto, the only solution is not even the committee. It goes back to Congress to override it. And the problem here really is the connection and the support to the allegation that President BBM committed betrayal of public trust. Of all the grounds, in the 6 grounds, the 4 are very clear. The first ground is culpable violation of the Constitution. You have to show which section of the Constitution is violated. Number 2, treason. That's Article 210 of the Revised Penal Code. Committed only in times of war. Third is the a case of bribery. That's 114 of the Revised Penal Code, direct bribery, knowingly receiving. And then the fifth is other high crimes. American have no decision on this, but American laws, it is such gravity that it involves already its effect on the nation by these officials. Betrayal of public trust is a matter of public policy to be done by Congress. We will be the one to decide what is betrayal of public trust. And to me, there is a failure of the narration of facts to say that the failure to veto of unprogrammed appropriations will be a betrayal of public trust. That so far, from this title of this act to the constitutional requirement that there should be betrayal of public trust. So therefore, that is my manifestation. Again, no substance in this case. Thank you.
The Honorable Rodriguez. Now we recognize the Honorable Joel Chua.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, the third issue relies solely on the failure of the President to veto the unprogrammed appropriation. So yung pag-veto lamang po ang kino-question niya po dito. But we know for the fact that the veto power is the exclusive prerogative and power of the President. Not even the President, not only the President, but all local government executive. Maski po sa mayor, governor, they all have
this veto power, and that is exclusive. Hindi po ito mandatory on them, pwede po nilang i-veto kung ano pong item sa budget. So that is their prerogative. Kaya hindi rin po nakastake dito sa fact na to kung bakit ito, kung ano pong crime ang na-violate ng presidente sa kanyang failure sa pagveto ng nasabing unprogram appropriation. That's why, Madam President, Madam Presiding Officer,
Insufficient.
the third issue, the third ground, I believe, does not or is not sufficient in substance.
Thank you, Honorable Chua. Next is the Honorable SDML Lawrence Defensor.
Naabak naman
Madam
yan.
Chair.
Dagi dyan, didigitin.
Or not to veto,
Lagot-lagot kayo mga didisit.
which was clearly
3 taon
stated
na kayong
Supreme Court in the
nanggugulo
case of
sa
Mendoza versus
mundo.
Supremo.
Kayo
that the
na lang,
political
kayo na
questions
lang.
are those questions which under the Constitution are to be decided by the people in their
Mga
sovereign
didisit,
capacity.
wala na kayong nakapaguran.
Those which full discretionary power
Wala na
has
kayong
been
kapaguran
delegated
sa
to the
paninira
executive or the
sa
legislative
Pilipinas.
department.
Hindi na kayo
The
nagsawa.
exercise or the non-exercise of that power by the President when it comes to the national budget is a non-impeachable offense. So therefore, let's move on to the next offense, Madam Chairman.
Madam
Thank
Chair.
you.
Next offense,
Now let
next
us recognize
offense,
the
next
Honorable
offense.
Sultan.
Mga didisit, mga didisit.
On the third ground
Didisit
of the failure
kayo.
of the President to exercise his
Bukas,
veto power,
si PBBM pa rin ang
the legal theory asserted is that his
Presidente. Ano
failure
kayo
to veto
ngayon?
unconstitutional provisions is
Oh,
tantamount to
oh,
betrayal of
oh,
public trust. The evidence cited were Supreme Court rulings voiding certain budget provisions,
Nasakit!
DBM
Nasakit
documents,
ang
and news
puso ko!
reports.
Nasakit ang
However,
puso ko!
As we all know, the presidential veto power is discretionary to the one wielding it. It is his prerogative to use it or not to use it. If he chooses not to use it, it is not an impeachable offense because it is discretionary by the person holding it. It is also not the constitutional. It is also not a constitutional duty to veto every unconstitutional provision because we have to first determine which provisions of the budget of the GAA is unconstitutional, and at that time there was no determination that the provision was unconstitutional. So, thirdly,
Unconstitutional!
we cannot
Unconstitutional!
impute
diba?
culpability on his failure of not using it
O,
because
diba?
it requires proof that there was bad faith and corrupt intent. That's why the President did not use his veto prerogative. So, Madam Chair, that is my position on the third allegation.
Thank you, Honorable Sultan. The Honorable Tino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I agree with some of the positions expressed here that in this case of the third act, under discussion, what is in question is the exclusive discretion of the President to veto power of the President. And the allegation here is that veto power was abused. Okay, now abuse may be done through a positive act or also through inaction when discretion is required. So, in the case here, one allegation is that the President failed to veto unconstitutional provisions. Now, it may be the case that there are certain provisions in the budget that are blatantly unconstitutional or illegal, in which case the President precisely has been given the veto power in order to address that. And if you read the presidential veto messages, veto of certain specific provisions are often justified by the President explaining that
this particular special provision approved by Congress will be in conflict with existing laws. Therefore, it is vetoed. No? So therefore, tama lang po. Pwede pong maging ground for impeachment yung hindi pag-veto. Lalo pa kung talagang lantad na illegal ang provision na yon. No? For example, unprogrammed appropriations may be sourced from PhilHealth funds. Okay? That is blatantly unconstitutional because there is a syntax law. Okay. However, what I do notice in the complaint is that there was an allegation that the President failed to veto unconstitutional provisions in multiple national budgets. However, the complaint does not specify which particular provisions are unconstitutional and required veto. So there is merely a general allegation. So the recital of facts appears to be lacking, Madam Chair.
Thank you. For the last speakers on the third offense, we will be calling the Honorable Po and then the Honorable Vice Chair Dumogan. Honorable Po.
Madam Chair, thank you for recognizing me.
O, mag-like naman kayo. Like yan.
This ground, because if we are to say that this has substance, then we are admitting or we are taking away from the willful action that must be provided if we're 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 to see grounds for impeachment. What's important to note here is that if we say that the president was lacking in his duty because he did not exercise his veto power, then we are putting a premium on the veto power, saying that the veto power is actually the job of the president and not an exceptional function of his office, in which the president is no longer in charge of execution. Now the president will be in charge of the judicial function of deciding whether or not every provision of the GAA is constitutional. So, is the president the head of the judiciary, or is he in charge of executing? Now, there are, as Representative Tino stated earlier, certain areas in which the president can exercise his veto right, but I maintain, and I think that my fellow colleagues here should consider, that this is always the exception in the role of the president, and that the veto power is not the primary function of his office.
That's the meaning of prerogative. To veto or not to veto. Now we proceed to the
Tama.
Honorable Vice Chair
The
Dumogan.
President
Thank you.
I will
have
ask
the
speaker on
prerogative
third offense.
Thank you, Madam
on
Chair.
his
In addition
duty.
to what the
O, diba? Talo na ang didilis, talo na ang didilis. Mga didilis, mga bokya kayo. Sino ngayon ang sinasabi nyong angat? Sino ngayon sinabi nyong ob-ob? Mga didilis. Nasaan na kayo, mga didilis? Nandun na kayo sa palayok. Piniprito sa mantika. Sinasahog sa mantika.
Betrayal of public trust or
Mga
corruption.
didilis. Magkape-kape
That
kayo dyan
ends
ha,
our
para
discussion on the
ma-relax.
third offense. The committee acknowledges all the significant comments and opinions on whether or not there is a recital of facts that constitute an offense determinative of the jurisdiction of the Justice Committee. Let us all be reminded by our parameter that we need to establish the offense to the ground of impeachment under which the same is anchored. Now we are moving to our fourth offense. Please allow the chair to read. Respondent benefited from kickbacks arising from budget insertions and ghost flood control projects. At this juncture, the Chair elicits the comment, opinion, and reaction of the committee members.
Magwagwag na kayong mga dideshet!
Walk out.
The Honorable Abante is recognized.
Natatawa ako sa kakaisip sa'yo.
Nakasama na rin ako dito. But anyway, ito pong fourth allegation. Isa lang sabihin ko dito. Nakalagay po sa ating rules. If it finds that sufficient grounds for impeachment do not exist, the committee shall dismiss the complaint and submit the report required hereunder. Ito po, it does not actually exist because everything that is said here is hearsay. Yun lang po.
Thank you.
Hearsay!
Honorable Rodriguez.
Hershey's! Mas masarap ang Hershey's na chocolate kasa hearsay. Nakakaangat ang hearsay. Pero mas masarap ang Hershey.
Which is graft and corruption.
Chan, charan,
Supreme Court in
charan.
the case of Francisco versus House of Representatives clearly already said that this is defined under the Republic Act 3019, which is the anti-graft code, the anti-graft law, which provides Section 3B and C. These are the main, if this is an allegation of a public official who receives kickbacks and from ghost projects and so forth, it should be under this. And it is clear, Madam Chair. We have to therefore go whether there's a recital of facts in relation to, Madam Chair, Section 3B and C. And here we go. This is now what it says, Madam Chair. It says Section 3, knowingly, deliberately, requesting and receiving money because of an important project or permit to be issued by the person. There is no allegation here, Madam Chair, that the President requested, that the President received money because he has a permit or contract to give. That is precisely what is stated here under Section 3A. Directly or indirectly requesting or receiving any gift, present, share, percentage, or benefit for himself or for any other person in connection with any transaction or contract between the government and that party. The second one, 3C, also is directly or indirectly requesting or receiving any gift and so forth for himself and another in a manner or capacity that has secured or obtained this particular permit. So there are only two provisions under Republic Act 3019, wherein, according to the Supreme Court, the fourth ground could be anchored upon, and there is no allegation here. Now, there is a statement here about Ako Bicol party list. This is a narration of fact, the recital of fact. However, the problem with this fact is that it was delivered to respondents' allies. If you can look at this, not to the President. Now, this is an impeachment, proposed impeachment of the President. And then attached copies of the video expose. Madam Chair, the video expose is abroad, wherein we, in the later part, will have to hear this particular person has to be present. Otherwise, it's a piece of paper and a piece of video that is not allowed to be introduced in any proceeding. Because we have to give the chance to the respondent to question always. And this is the cross-examination. This is the time to also provide the respondent the time to question, cross-examine the person who said that the money was given and he is not in this country. He's either in Portugal or Sweden. So therefore, Madam Chair, once again, the fourth ground, which is respondent engaged in graft and corruption through kickbacks and ghost projects, there is no recital of facts that will constitute the violation of the Republic Act 3019. Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair.
That is a significant discussion on graft and corruption. And of course, we recognize also the needed authenticity about the video of this expose. The Honorable Vice Chair Dumogan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, on allegation number 4,
Allegation.
respondent engaged in corruption through kickbacks and ghost projects.
Please,
The
Coach, pwede na ba
justify discharge are
basura
contained
talaga, walang
in
kwentang
paragraphs
impeachment.
27 up to 32. Reading all these paragraphs, they do not
Napahanga
contain
ako
the
kahit
narration
dalawan.
of facts that will
Kahit
pinpoint
dalawan.
to the President that will somewhat allude an illegal violation.
Tignan natin kung ano na nangyayari sa Facebook natin. Facebook. Hala, anong nangyari sa mundo? Hala, no work, no pay. Ah, lagot kayo kay kay Sandro. Oh, ayan, meron siyang meron siyang inanong batas. No work, no pay. Batas na sinusulong ni Congressman Sandro Marcos para sa mga mambabatas na hindi nagtatrabaho o pumapasok sa Kongreso. Unang-una na dyan, si Baste Duterte hindi pumapasok sa Kongreso. Huwag niyong pasahurin. Ayan o, no work, no pay. Sino pa? Si Senator Bato na hindi na pumapasok sa Senado. Huwag na ring pasahurin. O, di ba? Sino pa? Ano nangyari sa mundo? Ay, kalalat ka ma. Kailan to? All eyes here. Ala, malaki pala yung ngayon. 46 million. 46 million is waving. Hong Kong dollar. Lalagot kayo. Ito na. Hello mga taga Dupax del Norte. There is now a hearing to investigate this Google Corporation who is take the mining in Nueva Vizcaya. Yeah. Ayan, sabi niya dito, Senator Erwin sought the Senate investigate the foreign-owned Google Corporation over its mining operations in Dupax del Norte, Nueva Vizcaya, citing the alleged bypassing of the government unit. Dito magkakalaman kung talaga bang hindi sila dumaan sa local government ng Dupax, Nueva Vizcaya. So kasi nga nagtuturoan sila, di ba? Wala kaming ipon sa Hong Kong. At least 2 beses ka nag-asawa. Kayo lang. Kung ano-ano nang pinapalabas nila. Kasi talo na sila, guys. Kasi nga basura yung impeachment ni PBBM.
An illegal
Walang sufficient.
violation which is tantamount to graft in corruption. What had been stated here are allegedly given to certain allies is too vague and too wide to consider. So, looking at all of these allegations, clearly it does not justify
Sino ba ito?
the ground, again, to impeach the president on graft in corruption under the provision of Article 10, Section 11 of the Constitution.
Puro insufficient
Thank you,
allegation.
Vice Chair Dumogan.
Puro
Our next speakers for the
insufficient
fourth
allegation.
offense are the Honorable Acosta, the Honorable De Lima, and the Honorable Colliantes, one after the other. The Honorable Acosta is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is just a reiteration of my two senior compañeros. Is the lack of the ultimate facts required for a charge of graft and corruption based on the 6 paragraphs of the number 4 allegation, Madam Chair. It mentions suitcases of cash and ghost flood control projects. But Madam Chair fails to provide 1, specific dates, 2, specific persons involved, 3, specific project names, and lastly is the direct links to the President's personal involvement in this case. Madam Chair, it is my humble opinion that these are generalities and broad generalizations, which according to the Supreme Court, in that case of Gutierrez versus House of Representatives, GR number 193459, are insufficient for impeachment, Madam.
Allah!
Thank you.
Tumutulo na yung yung ilong ko kasi insufficient.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As
Insufficient.
to this fourth ground, general ground, graft and corruption, and the main specific allegation that allegedly the president benefited from kickbacks arising from budget insertions and ghost flood control projects, with 4 sub-allegations. 1, PBBM orchestrated insertion in GAA for kickbacks. I agree with the Honorable Acosta that it lacks specificity as to what, how, and when, making this a conclusion rather than a factual allegation. The nexus again between the factual allegations and the ground of graft and corruption was not established due to the lack of specificity of the allegations in how PBBM orchestrated the flood control scam for kickbacks, other than by sweeping statements that are more of conclusions than allegations of specific acts. Sub-allegation number 2, suitcases of cash were delivered to PBBM's political allies. Again, lacks specificity as to who, what, how, and when. Sub-allegation number 3, the ghost flood control projects confirm plunder of public funds that is not possible without PBBM's approval. This is a conclusion rather than a factual allegation. The fourth and the last sub-allegation for this ground is PBBM is allegedly the central figure in corruption schemes. This is again a conclusion rather than a factual allegation. In all of this, in light of the evidence uncovered, I just wonder, in light of the evidence uncovered in the multiple fora investigations conducted on the flood control scam, medyo kapos talaga sa allegation yung complaint. It seems overly complacent for the complainant to be sparing in his factual allegations as to establish the ground for impeachment. For me, Madam Chair, there is simply paucity of factual allegations. Again, this is insufficient.
Thank you, Honorable. Our last speaker in the fourth offense is the Honorable King Colliantes.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to manifest expressed my support for all of the comments sent by our dear colleagues. But really, the question right now here is, are these just conclusions made by the complainant, or are these really based on fact? Remember, we have to go back to the verification, which says that all of his allegations must be based on personal knowledge. Thus, the complainant, have personal knowledge. Was he there when these alleged transactions happened? Does he have any basis, based on authentic records, to say that money was transferred, money was provided to the president? I doubt it. So I think based on what is written on the complaint, it is insufficient as a ground for impeachment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Colliantes. That concludes our discussion on the fourth offense. Now we are moving to the fifth offense. Please allow the chair to read. Respondent created the ICI to shield corrupt allies. So, this is the offense, and the same is anchored under any, some, or all of the following: graft and corruption, culpable violation of the Constitution, and betrayal of public trust. At this juncture, we elicit the comments and opinions of the committee members. First, we recognize the Honorable SDML Lawrence Defensor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would have to speak. I'm compelled to speak for the membership of the ICI regarding this allegation that it was created to shield corrupt allies. Madam Chairman, the appointment and participation of the members of the ICI, particularly Secretary Rogelio Singson, whose integrity and reputation speaks of good governance, contravenes the allegations by this impeachment complaint head-on. Hindi ka maglalagay ng mga taong naging ehemplo ng mabuting patakaran at pamahalaan kung ang balak ay pagtakpan ang korupsyon. So the membership itself of ICI, a presiding justice of the Court of Appeals, an SGB partner who is a partner on audit, and someone like Rogelio Singson, who is a model for good governance, clearly runs contravene against this allegation in the creation of the ICI. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Honorable SDML Lawrence Defensor. The Honorable Franz Legaspi is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to give a very short manifestation to take note of the evidence or the annexes presented. The evidence in the annexes presented. For me, and this is a general observation as well with the earlier topics, but in particular for this ground, there are a lot of evidences with the sources are only media outlets, news sources, and I think this was generally already noted by our members of this committee. But in this particular ground, these articles are, I think, 4 opinion columns, mostly predicated on the opinions of certain personalities, certain characters. And I think in relation to the particular ground that the complaint wishes to state, I believe I think it's clear, the betrayal of public trust with regard to the creation, or rather the ICI's creation, somehow affecting or resulting in a loss of public trust, which would, in this case, be a ground to impeach the president. I think it's very clear on that part that the evidence presented is not directly related to that particular ground, and also it's also vague with regard to the metrics or how it could match or say that there was a betrayal of public trust or that the trust ratings are affected by the creation of the ICI. So that's my humble submission, Madam Chair. For me, I think this is just based on this ground is already insufficient in substance as well. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Legaspi. We are on last offense. This is the allegation that the creation of the ICI is used to shield the allies of the impeachable official. The Honorable Vice Chair Dumogan is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, it appears that this is one of an allegation that is not at all supported by narration of facts. In fact, as we all know, aside from what had already been stated, the integrity and competence of the members of the ICI appointed in disprove this fact. Second, they have investigated all those that had come to their attention related to corrupt implementation of projects, which clearly disprove the allegation that it has been created to shield certain allies in government. So it's far, far away from establishing a legal violation which is considered as willful violation of the Constitution as an impeachable offense. Your Honor, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dumogan. Any other comment or manifestation from the members? The Honorable Po.
Madam Chair, the creation of an anti-corruption body in and of itself is not an impeachable offense. Now, there's an assumption in this grounds that it was used for shielding. However, what we actually have evidence of in terms of the ICI's actions is that its investigation included both allies and non-allies alike. Its recommendations also had both allies and non-allies alike. And if we're going to discuss further, I would caution our colleagues on finding substance in this, because we do not want to discourage future anti-corruption efforts. We don't want to discourage future transparency efforts. What we're discussing is the willful violation of the Constitution. But what we have here on record is the willful act of the President for transparency and accountability. That's what we have objective fact on. So I just want to make sure that we are not dissuading efforts for transparency and accountability within our government by finding substance in this.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. The Honorable Rodriguez.
Madam Chair, I take exception to this particular ground for impeachment. I personally know a former Secretary of Public Works and Highways, Rogelio Babe Singson, who was already congressman of the 2nd District of Cagayan de Oro. And he often comes to Cagayan de Oro to be able to look at projects. And during his time, and even up to now, there are no ghost projects in Cagayan de Oro 2nd District, nor any substandard project. Now, he would not accept it. If this is a shield, then he would not have continued until he, because of health reasons, has to therefore resign. But during the term that he was there together with the SGB representative and former Presiding Justice Reyes, it was clear that they were able to invite and get documents. And some have already been recommended for filing. If this were a shield, then there would have been no action of the ICI. But there were many already given to the Ombudsman for investigation and
Kayong mga didilis, isinausaw sa kamatis. Lagyan ng alamang at bagong masarap nguya-nguyain.
ICI. And so therefore, I personally know the former secretary, and I was very happy that despite the fact that he has been retired, he took the job because he believed that the ICI can make a difference in stopping all of this flood control mess, and then be able to send the proper cases and documents to the Ombudsman, which is the jurisdiction over cases of graft and corruption and plunder. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Next is the Honorable Lord Yansuan.
Madam Chair, the body of the complaint does not contain any express provision in the ICI's charter that limits investigations only to political opponents, nor does it contain any instances of limiting of any instances or policy or rule exempting allies. In fact, I remember that even the president's son was summoned to the ICI. Nor does the complaint state any rule by the ICI which bars or obstructs any investigation against allies, and I have seen several instances in which supposed allies of the president were summoned to the ICI. To emphasize, the president has the authority to create ad hoc investigative bodies to ensure faithful execution of our laws. And saying so, the ICI is only a recommendatory and fact-finding body. Furthermore, allegations of political targeting are only speculative, and bad faith cannot be presumed. They must be proven with particularity.
The Honorable Garbin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The establishment of such body like the ICI falls within the President's executive and administrative discretion, which we have constantly regarded as political question and which is outside the ambit of this honorable body. Be that as it may, the complaint likewise does not allege ultimate facts showing abuse, unlawful purpose, or concrete acts of favoritism directly attributable to the President. Absent specific evidence demonstrating selective enforcement or deliberate shielding of particular individuals
Sa lapay-taypay.
from identifiable
3 minutes lang ano.
presidential acts. The allegations, Madam Chair,
Palakpakan natin ang pro-government. Panalo tayo. Ibig sabihin, walang korupsyon
Any other member?
sa part ni BBM.
The
Okay?
Honorable Abante.
Bukas, hanggang 2028, si PBBM pa rin ang presidente! Charan! 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 Charan!
You may proceed, Honorable Abante.
Although the ICI should have been given more powers to investigate and to subpoena na hindi po nangyari. Ito pong si Atty. Andre De Jesus. Hindi ko alam kung anong klaseng abogado ito. Pero nakakahiya naman doon sa members ng ICI na magaling mag-imbestiga at para bang sila din po ay nagkasala din at nagkamali ng taong bayan. I just would like to say na walang kwenta po itong sinasabing itong tinatawag natin na
Sino naman yan? Ay, si Pastor Abante. Ano sasabi niya?
allied. Siguro po, kung siya ang presidente, gagawin niya yun. But the thing is this, no? Palagay ko talagang wala na pong sufficient grounds itong impeachment dito. Eh, dapat talaga ipasura na ho natin ito sa lalong madaling panahon. Maraming salamat po, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair,
Honorable Abante, let us be cordial to our complainants. Nonetheless, we recognize the Honorable Erice.
Madam Chair, nakakaasar na rin po kasi.
All your manifestations are noted.
Madam Chair, I would say that the ICI is a complete failure. As evidenced by the resignations of the two members of the ICI. Pero hindi po nakakahulugan ito na ang Pangulo ay ginawa ito para pagtakpan yung kanyang mga allies. Ito
Si Erice Balimbing!
isang conclusion rather than a fact. So, Madam Chair, I don't think that this is a sufficient basis to impeach a president. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Erice. The Honorable Vice Chair Dumogan.
thank you, Madam Chair. I think we had lengthily discussed the 5 grounds of the De Jesus impeachment complaint. And
May isang itlog! May isang itlog! May isang bulkan! May isang bulkan! 4 na itlog! Charot! rin.
contribution of all the members
Okay.
for having this exhaustive and lengthy discussion on whether or not the recital of facts actually constitute an offense determinative of the jurisdiction of the Justice Committee, no? We've heard significant discussions on the needed ultimate facts, that there must be specific details for us to be able to substantiate the offense which constitute the ground for impeachment. We've heard also discussion about the need for authenticity of not only the records but even the video. We've heard also about the need for personal knowledge with respect to the allegations of the facts in the impeachment complaint, as well as the nexus, which was repeatedly mentioned by the Honorable De Lima. It's not enough that the impeachable offense is, or the impeachable official is guilty of an offense. That offense must constitute a ground for impeachment, no? I hope that all
Okay,
the
bye! Bye, 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 bye!
members of the committee, when we vote